We're studying our GCSE biology and we're starting humans and the environment forward. In the last class, we focused on a few things such as pollution and conservation. Only limited to recycling of, let's say, metals, I think, paper, and the water. We'll look into this a bit more today. The agenda is focus on conservation and the chapter is done. First thing first, write the definition of a sustainable resource. And check if you have written this already.
Sorry, I wasn't there in the last class.
I think you were.
So the last thing I wrote was reproduction in humans, class 7.
Okay. I think you were there on Friday. It's fine then. Write this quickly. So resource which is produced as rapidly it is removed from the environment, so it does not run out. That is the definition directly from the syllabus booklet. The next thing you have to write is sustainable development. What is this? I'm going to read the definition of sustainable resource out loud.
Sustainable resource. Resource which is produced as rapidly as it is removed from the environment so that it does not run out.
All right, so it does not run out. Now, perfect. That's how you basically, what is a sustainable resource? Unsustainable resources are, we'll first look at examples of this. Again, examples could be wind, water, etc. These are, they are sustainable. Wind, water, trees. You can grow them as at the same rate as you're cutting them down or destroying them or using them. You know? Next thing is unsustainable resource. Well, it's just the opposite. I won't ask you what it is. It's the opposite of this, which cannot be formed as quickly as it is being used up. The example of this is fossil fuel, a big one. Plastic.
Isn't this basically renewable and non-renewable resources?
Yeah, it's exactly the same thing. That's just a different way of saying it. So you can write this as renewable resources as well, but in your syllabus, in the book, they use the word sustainable. However, in the exam, they're going to use both the words interchangeably. So they mean the same thing. Now, sustainable development, what is that? It's basically when as humans grow, you have to also meet the requirements of the population, right? You need more food, more houses, more clothes, all of that. But how do you manage all of this, right? That's the big question. To manage that, you need to develop the infrastructure. You need to develop a lot of things. All right, let's continue. Have you finished writing?
No.
Resources that can be sustainably managed. What are these resources? These resources are forests, one which are forests, two which are fish stocks. For forests, you need to write how do you do all of this. The first one is education. You have protected areas, replanting, and quota. Now, while you're writing it, I need you to ask me if you don't understand any word. If you have any questions, please ask me. Even though
Yes.
our goal is to finish the chapter as quickly as possible, but we also need to understand everything. So we have these fish stocks of education. It's closed seasons, protected areas, controlled net types. What kind of nets are the fishermen using? Mesh size, let's just say control net types and mesh size. Quotas and monitoring.
What is a quota?
What is a quota? Look, a quota basically means a limited, just a second, limited threshold, let's say, given to people, or let's just say limit given to people. What is a limit? Limit of something. So if I say if I say I take Poland as a country, this country Poland, I'm telling them the fishermen of this country. So let's just say Polish fishermen can only take, let's say, can only fish 500 fishes in 1 month. If they do more than this, then they're going to get fined, right? So if you, let's say, if you exceed quota, then you will be fined. Exceeding quota leads to fines. Amina, do you understand?
Yeah.
Now, please also write this in your notebook. Ayan, have you finished writing the first thing? Sustainable resource?
Oh, yes, sir.
Let's go down. Next thing we're looking at is endangered species.
Sir,
And
could you
why
scroll
do they
slightly up?
become, all right? Why do they become endangered? Reasons let's just say, reasons for becoming endangered or extinct. A few of those, such as climate change. Now, when the climate changes, that it makes it difficult for animals to survive. Now, look, let's say 10 years ago, the maximum temperature we had was about 50, let's say 50 degrees Celsius. All right, so all the animals became, uh, they evolved in such a way that they could survive in 50 degrees Celsius as a maximum. But now, since we're increasing carbon dioxide emission in the atmosphere, that is leading to climate change, that is leading to higher and higher temperature, let's say 60 degrees Celsius. Now, that 10-degree may not look big, but for animals, it's a big difference. And that causes animals to become extinct because they cannot survive a 60-degree Celsius environment suddenly. Also, if it's not just the animals which cannot survive, the trees die out, right? The water goes away, the trees die, and if the trees die, then animals cannot live on the trees. Now, those trees on which the animals live are called habitats. That's where the habitat destruction comes in. If you destroy the house of someone where they live, that is basically the habitat, then they cannot live there anymore and they don't have a house, they will not survive. The third one is habitat destruction is done, hunting. We have over harvesting. And lastly, we have pollution. Now, how can we conserve endangered species? Conservation. Conserve these guys, you need a few things. The first thing you need is monitoring and protecting species and habitats. So if they ask in the exam, how can we conserve or protect endangered species? You would say we can do that by monitoring and protecting species and their habitats. We can also educate people. We can use captive breeding programs. Now I'll explain all of this in a second. Lastly, seed banks. Amina, how much have you written?
I'm doing monitoring and protecting species.
Oh, that's nice. Good. Now the only thing remaining is understanding all of this. We'll read the book once to understand all of this, and two more things are remaining, which we haven't written. Reasons for conservation, right? Why do we can do conservation? And also, we'll look at something called artificial insemination. And IVF. Ayan, what is your progress?
So I'm writing conservation of endangered species.
All right. Now, you don't have to write this. This is what we're doing after this. In education, please write educating local people or educating people. Educating local people, and again in education, where else did we do education? Education in sustainable development management and in fish stocks. Just replace education with educating local people. One last thing you should add in reasons for endangered species is 6, introduced species.
Done.
Well, all right. Now, why do we do conservation? So look at that. Fine, fine, fine. The reasons for conservation is extended. Since all of us are doing extended only, we need to learn this as well. Now, the first reason is uh, damaging ecosystems. Just a second. Due to harm. Okay, damaging. Let's just say damaging. These change this. Let's say, if a species becomes extinct, it could lead to whole ecosystem collapsing. Food webs of other animals can get disrupted. Second one. Or just write in this, you need to write a few things, which is okay. If a species becomes extinct, it could lead to a whole ecosystem being destroyed. What is an ecosystem? If you look at a forest, right, in that you have a whole big ecosystem. Let's show it to you. If you look at this forest right here, can you see this, Amina? Amina?
Yeah.
Now, in this, one thing that's happening is you have lots of different types of trees here. Some of them are shorter, some of them are longer, quite tall. Some of them are on the stones. There are animals in the water as well. Do you see? Now, fishes are in the water. Let's imagine. There are other
Yeah.
animals living on the trees. There are polar bears, not polar bears, forest bears, all of those. Pandas, which live in these forests. Now, if I want, let's say I want a specific tree, right? Or okay, I want a specific tree. I want a specific plant which lives near the water or in the water, right? But if I pollute the whole habitat, if I let's say pollute the whole water, then all the plants will die. Now that plant right there, if I show it to you right here, look, let's say there's a plant over here, this plant, the red plant here in the water. Now if I add pollution to the water, then this plant will die. Now why is this plant important for us? Because this plant can be used for medicine. It could be used for making specific chemicals, perhaps, especially medicine. Now if we can't get those medicine, then it will affect the human population as well. Now another thing is, let's say, what about the trees here? If I pollute the air, then the trees cannot photosynthesize and they die. And if they die, I can't get that wood, and that wood is used to make paper. It's used to make bags and everything. So that's why it's also those trees also give us food and medicine. So if the whole ecosystem collapses, humans are part of that ecosystem. So the humans will also be affected. So let's write all of those things which I mentioned right here. Let's start with medicine. Plants are used to make medicine. Genetic resources are useful to humans for genetic engineering. Now, perhaps if you want to take some bacteria from this water and you want to do genetic engineering on it, or if you want to take some plant and genetically engineer it to make a different, better kind of plant, you cannot do it if the plant disappears, if it goes extinct, or if the whole habitat collapses. Now, the second thing you need to realize is all organisms have ethical value. So it's our responsibility to conserve. That's it. Those are the reasons for conservation. There are a few more. There's one more, which is maintaining biodiversity. Now, look, if all the plants die, then we realize that less animals can live in this forest. If less animals can live, then the biodiversity decreases, and that will lead to less natural selection, less evolution happening, which is not good for humans. Last thing is reducing extinction and protecting vulnerable environments or ecosystems. That's it. Now the point 4 is somewhat similar to point 1, but they're different points. Ayan, any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, then I'll ask you one. Let's say, how is food or the food we eat as humans affected by pollution to a habitat or affected by habitat destruction? The food we eat.
Sir, what was the name of that pollution, that pollutant we learned last class? DDT or something?
Yeah, that was DDT.
DDT, right? So I can use that same logic over here.
Yeah, you can, obviously.
So plastics they're indestructible and can be passed on from organism to organism when consumed. Like for example, if you apply pollutants to plants, they can be eaten by bugs. Bugs can be eaten by a secondary animal, and then that secondary animal can be eaten by humans. And the plastics are getting passed on, and then the plastic concentration can build up, which can lead to many health problems.
Perfect. Right, that makes sense. So I need the word food web there. What is it? Food web. Basically, what you mentioned about secondary animals, that's the food web. So what we say is the chemicals can bioaccumulate, the word bioaccumulate, over different stages of the food web. All right, and because of this, the food web can get disrupted. That's the first point in conservation. Because if the whole ecosystem collapses, food web becomes disrupted. Plants cannot give medicine. Genetic resources are not. We don't have that anymore because the ecosystem collapses. Finally, we need to maintain biodiversity. Why do we need to maintain biodiversity? Can someone tell me? Because we need more for, let's just say, for more genetic variation and useful alleles. And let's say saving or conserving useful alleles of saving. So the more biodiversity we have, the more genetic variation we get. And therefore we can pick and choose different varieties of alleles in plants. But if you have a very small, let's say, genetic variation, that would be a very big problem because then the plant cannot get suited to its environment. Amina, have you finished writing?
Yeah.
Ayan?
So I'm writing the third point.
Right. Now there's one thing we'll talk about. I'll open the book for you. It's opening. I usually open the book quite soon, but today I only taught you on the white. Now, Amina, can you see the book?
Yeah.
So we looked at this: habitat destruction, endangered species, hunting, pollution, introduced species. We haven't done that yet. We looked at that in a second. Now we came here: reasons for conservation programs. I want you to read from here. This is in Excel. Read it.
There is still concern, however, about the loss of genetic diversity in the green parakeet population. All the individuals now alive were bred from the 10 birds that remained in the 1970s. So they are all quietly closely related and share many of the same alleles. The breeding programs are being organized to try to keep as much genetic diversity as possible.
Right. So the question here is, how can a small population make a problem for us? Let's see. Write this in your notebook. Let's say risk to species if its population decreases. First reason, less biodiversity. right? And we know what is biodiversity. It's directly related to variation, genetic variation. So let's say less genetic variation, less adaptations to environment, and let's say useful alleles evolving. So it's just a loss of useful alleles. That that completes this part. Is there anything else we require to know? Yes, there's one more thing. So finish this. Finish writing this first. All right. Amina, have you finished?
No.
Take your time. Are you understanding? Any questions? Amina, any questions?
No.
No. It's quite important that students, if you have any friends who want to join, they should join very quickly because November is already here. You have your exams in March. Especially the same thing happened to Amina as well because we have finished some chapters and we're joining a bit late. So we'll revise everything, no worries.
Yeah.
Because we'll finish the chapters and we'll get back to revising everything. But still, since we're taking tests and you were not there in class then, so it is a challenge for you. So I hope you will overcome the challenge. You'll revise, and we'll also revise after tomorrow.
Yeah.
Ayan, how much have you written?
So I'm writing the risks.
Risks. All right, risk two. Risks. Then we'll just look at the last thing, which is artificial insemination and in vitro fertilization. Now, some of the things which I have given you before, such as the fish stock thing and the tree conservation thing, we'll read that in the book as well to understand it. Now, you have written it, but you need to understand as well. Writing is not enough. We'll do that after this. First, let's look at artificial insemination. I had Amina finish.
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
Let's look at captive breeding performance. The seed banks are here. This part. Remind me to get back to seed banks. All right, let's just write it ourselves. Start writing. The first thing you need to understand in this, but I can't really find it in the book right now, but it is there. It is in your syllabus. Now, what is this all about? This is about taking a fertilization happening outside in a test tube, basically. Basically outside. Let's see how this works. The first thing is captive breeding, right below it. The title should be artificial insemination in captive breeding. First thing is step one. Step one is gametes are taken from endangered animals to which is in vitro fertilization. Ovum is fertilized outside the female. The fertilized ovum is implanted in uterus. This allows saving or just this prevents extinction of animals by increasing population or by breeding. That's it. Now, what is happening here? What does this mean? Well, all you're doing is you're taking animals which are endangered. Then you're taking the gametes from those animals and you're fertilizing the egg, right? And then you're placing it inside the other animal. They have the same species, so that they can reproduce. Now, sometimes it can be a problem because look, animals are sometimes traumatized. They are sometimes, let's say, there are very less populations of animals, and if you don't interfere, then they are going to become extinct. The population, the growth rate is very less. So therefore, we need to step inside, use captive breeding program. Let's say we have only 10 tigers left in Britain. Then we take those tigers and we place them in a conservation site, and we take the gametes from them. We allow the reproduction to happen so that the population can increase very quickly, so that they don't get extinct. Right? Any questions? Amina?
No.
That's artificial insemination for you. Right. Now have you finished writing? Ayan?
Yes, sir.
What about Ayan? Amina is
Yeah, done, sir.
right. Both of you are quite good. Now we'll look at a few things. Let's start from the sustainable development again. Okay, let's read it now. Everything is written. It's in your notebook. Now let's read. I'm gonna read this part.
Yes.
The highlighted part
As
only.
our population increases, we need to build more houses, roads, and industries, and to produce more food. Achieving this without damaging the environment is called sustainable development.
All right. So read the definition in your notebook. Amina.
Sustainable development. Yeah. Resource which is produced as rapidly as it is removed
No,
from the
that's sustainable resource. We need sustainable development.
Okay. Development providing for the needs of an increasing human population without harming the environment.
Right? So same thing's written here, but this is more a longer version, and it's not how it's written in the marking scheme. What's in your notebook is exactly based on the marking scheme. So population increases, so you're meeting the requirements of the rising population without harming or damaging the environment. That's it. The next
Sir,
thing is yes, Ayan.
that question you asked me earlier, what if it came for 6 marks? How do we answer that?
Which question?
The one about plastics passing on in organisms.
Now that was bioaccumulation or pollution of water with chemicals. That would only come in pollution of water. Now, how would you answer that? You answer first a few things. If it tells you about pollution of water, you'll say, how can water be polluted? First thing you'll say is untreated sewage is being passed into the rivers and water bodies, 1 mark. Second thing is that these chemicals can bioaccumulate from one stage of the ecosystem to the next, another mark. The bioaccumulation increases the dosage of the chemicals, which can be harmful to the species, another mark. The last one would be that it can damage and disrupt the whole food chain because it is damaging the other animals as well in the food chain.
And then what about like a eutrophication question? I think that was in the paper you gave us.
Eutrophication, well, yeah, eutrophication is much different. It's nothing related to bioaccumulation. Eutrophication is when untreated sewage and fertilizers, especially nitrates and sulfates, are released into the water, or they wash into the water bodies. Then the algae get a lot of excess nutrients, so their population increases very quickly. Then what happens is they block the sunlight, all right? So the aquatic plants below them die. Then the bacteria in the water, they're going to decompose those animals, those not animals, the plants. And in doing so, they decompose it by aerobic respiration, which uses up all the oxygen. That's 3 marks so far. Then next thing is that this using up oxygen leads to oxygen starvation of aquatic animals. So they die as well. That's 4 marks, I think. Well, it's not 4 marks, that whole thing should be 6 marks, right? Or whatever marks it is given in the question. So algae bloom, decomposing with bacteria aerobically, blocking sunlight, oxygen starvation, algae formation, and fertilizer running into water. That's 6 points. Any questions, Ayan?
No, sir.
Right. Now, next thing is, yeah, that is fine. That is fine. Now, conserving forests. Let's read. It's about deforestation, right? Conserving forests and fish stocks. Let's read the first one.
Sir, me?
Yes, Ayan.
Governments can refuse to grant licenses to companies who want to cut down valuable forests.
What is this called? This is called protected areas, or this is called basically protected areas. You're giving protected areas where you cannot cut down trees, which are valuable. This basically comes under creating protected areas. Let's look at this.
Sir, what makes the forest valuable?
What makes the forest valuable? That's quite a difficult question. I wondered how I can answer that. Let's see. Let's read all of this part. The whole reason for forest conservation is if one species dies, then the whole food web collapses, right? It's so dramatic that if one plant dies in the forest, it goes extinct forever, then you won't have French fries on your table. That's how dramatic it is. Because look, if one plant dies, then the predator of that, let's say animals which eat that plant will also die. The plant perhaps could be doing a important role in maintaining the ecosystem. So ecosystem collapses. So ecosystem collapses and the food web collapses. So humans cannot get their food anymore. Another thing is, let's say you have crocin, paracetamol, dolo, all of these medicine which you have. If all of these are taken from plants, by the way, the chemicals for making them. So if plants go extinct, then you can't make chemicals, which is again a big problem. Another thing is, if plants die, then you cannot do the genetic variation decreases, that also means that you cannot do genetic engineering anymore. All of those reasons are for making forests useful. Now, how can you make, let's say, how can you conserve all of these things? How can you conserve? Why do we know why. We know why now, but how do we do it? So I gave you the 4 steps here: educating local people, protecting areas, replanting, and quotas. Let's look at this. The first one was the protected area part, which basically stops them from, don't give them license for getting specific forests. For plants also give out oxygen. They recycle carbon dioxide. So they're also a big part in the carbon dioxide cycle. Dioxide cycle. Now look at this part. This one. I'm gonna read.
Instead of cutting down all the trees in a forest, just a small proportion of the trees are cut down. This is called selective felling. The remaining trees will hold the soil in place and will continue to provide habitats for animals. New trees can regrow to replace those which have been cut down. In practice, however, selective felling often does a lot of damage to the forest because of the roads that are built to allow access.
All that stuff. Now, one thing they're telling us is that you only cut a few parts and replant the trees. That comes under replanting. Okay, when the forests are being cut, you have to replant the same number of trees so you do not allow them to become extinct. Replanting. Let's look at this one. Yeah, read this one, Ayan, quick.
When large number of trees are cut down, new ones should be planted to replace them.
Perfect. That's replanting. Last one, education. Amnari.
Education can help to make sure that people understand how important it is to conserve forests. For example, in some places, local people cut down trees to use a fuel for cooking. If they understand the importance of conserving trees, then they can make sure that they replant new trees to replace the ones that they cut down.
Educate the local people. That's the part here, right? Educating local people, protecting areas, replanting quotas. Now, they haven't mentioned quotas here, have they? They have, well, they haven't, but quota is basically giving a certain requirement that you can only cut down this much tree and then you cannot cut more trees. Now, fish stocks. Right, I'm gonna, Ayan, read from here, quick.
One system of controlling the number of fish caught is to impose quotas. These allow countries, regions, or fishermen to catch only a certain quantity of fish.
Perfect. So what this does is this prevents over harvesting. What is over harvesting? That's what we saw here. How it happens. Over harvesting, reason for endangered species, is that if you take out too many fishes from the ecosystem, then that can cause them to become extinct. So we impose quotas that prevents them from over harvesting, and they can only buy certain quantity of fish. Read this part, Amina. Quick.
Another way of trying to keep up the numbers of a particular species of fish is to breed large number of them in fish hatcheries and then release them. The rules are enforced by inspectors who visit boats at sea and also check the catches that are brought into land.
This is called monitoring. And this last part is called restocking. Just do one thing in fish stocks, just put one more thing there, which is called restocking. Restocking, which is breeding fish in hatcheries, and releasing them into releasing them back. Let's just say that. That's enough. So that's you're asking. You should go to fish stocks and add restocking there. In the exam, they're just going to ask you how do we do this. They won't ask you a story. So you need to give these reasons. You can do all of this, and logically, you should also provide evidences or let's say reasons for doing this. So why do you educate people? Because they can educate people so that they do not cut too many trees or they replant trees. Why should we protect areas? Well, because so people cannot cut down valuable forests. Why do we give quotas so that people do not get kill too many fishes or kill too many animals so that they become extinct? Right? I hope you can give the reasons in the exam. Right, Ayan and Amina?
Yes, sir.
So you need 1.1 reason, 1.1 reason. At least, so it's 3 marks, you have to give 3 points, 3 reasons. That's it. So finish writing this, and that's all for today. In the next class, we're doing practice. Next class will be past papers and a new chapter. Well, we finished the syllabus. This was the last chapter in your book, which we had to do. So after this, we're starting the revision from the book. All right, Amina or Ayan, recap quick. What did we study?
We went through methods of conserving trees, quotas, bioaccumulation, and what was the last word? Sorry, we
Amina?
did
Reasons of conservation and then artificial insemination.
Insemination. That's it. So I hope you learned something in this class. You understood what I taught you. Now the next thing comes up to you to do the assignments and prepare for the test tomorrow. Physics. I'm gonna try your best to prepare, but I'll take a class for you while the others are doing the test. Fine?
Okay.
All right. Take care. Goodbye. Ayan, prepare well.
thank you, sir. Goodbye.